wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, René Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to She Became Visible. You can see there we go. My guest today is Lila Tuller, and we have a really fun topic to discuss on January 1, 2025, because this is the day when everybody does their silly resolutions, right? And if there are any people out there that either are newly divorced or have always been single and dating is their thing, this is why we wanted to talk about this. Now, I am not dating. I have been married for 50 years, but Lila has fabulous experience. She wrote this amazing book, Online Dating Advice for Midlife. And I have an echo. I hope you guys can't hear it, but I know I have an echo on my microphone. I don't know why. So I'm going to try and just maybe slow down so that I don't overtalk myself. But Lila, thanks for joining me on January 1, 2025.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is exciting. Brand new year.
Yeah, brand new year. And I'm amazed at how many people I've heard on TV say they don't set resolutions. They don't do New Year's resolutions because they always fail and it's discouraging. And I know I stopped doing that years ago. It's like, no, because I'm always doing something throughout the year. And so I don't have any New Year's resolutions really, but I found your book so interesting. And I don't know if you watched The Golden Bachelorette. Did you watch it this last year?
I did not. I've been told to watch it. I couldn't. I turned it on. It was just too cringy for me. I think it's because it was too close to home somehow.
Yeah.
I can watch The Bachelorette or The Bachelor because I'm kind of removed from it now. Yeah. But as a golden, I had a hard time with it. Yeah. So.
Well, not only that, but I have to show a clip. Because I'm thinking, I don't know how many people applied for this job. I know a lot of these men said, my kids applied for me. I didn't even know they did this, or my kids talked me into this. This wasn't my idea. But they tried to have a diverse pool, which I appreciate. I appreciate diversity. But I'm kind of looking at some of these guys and I'm going, okay, Joan is a tall woman. I don't know if she's going to be dating someone considerably shorter than she is. That's important for some women, not all women, but things like that. Yeah. But I want to show this. There's a couple little clips I want to show before we get into this because I thought they were very apropos. All right, so here we go. Here's the dating pool that Joan had to pull from.
Kindness, compatibility,
intelligence,
authentic,
honesty,
confidence,
arrogance.
To me, the most important thing to look for in a partner is open and honest communication.
Communication is the most important thing in a relationship. It's the cornerstone and a path that lead to so many other things that are critical.
My faith is very important, so she has to be a God-fearing woman.
For me, the most important thing to look for in a prospective partner is interest, as defined by a desire to learn about something or someone.
What I refer to as the 5 C's. There must be commitment, compatibility, communication, caring, and compromise.
Authentic is important to me because I want my partner to be who she is with me. I want her to be open, honest, vulnerable, compassionate, loving.
Positive attitude is such a valuable trait in a relationship.
Honesty is the most important thing to look into a partner.
Confidence is important in a partner because a confident partner will be respectful and kind to others. A confident woman, now that's hot.
Compatibility, and it is so important, especially at our age, where you want to be able to live with that person, love their family, spend all your time with them, and grow old together.
Honesty. So you have to be honest on all levels.
Reciprocity. And with reciprocity comes love and kindness and thoughtfulness. But more importantly than anything is respect and attraction.
Chemistry is by far the most important thing in a relationship, hands down.
The number one trait I look for in a partner is intelligence, because we can grow and learn together. And
okay. I'm telling you, Lila, I get a kick because these guys are older, and most of them are trying to remember what is the 50-50. A lot of them are widowers, and a lot of them are divorced, but I can't remember how many of which. So it's like, look, you guys are in your late 50s, early 60s. And so all these traits that you're throwing out there were not the same traits we were looking at when we were 18 or 19, right? Honesty was the most important thing to me when I went to that church dance and met my husband. I just thought, now, is he an honest guy? Is he intelligent? I'm like, he is really cute. Done.
Yeah.
But it's just that. But I just thought, when a lot of those guys, when you watch it, Lila, the funniest part is when they whittle down the 24 to like 14. And so then they bring them into the mansion and they introduce them to this is the bedrooms that you guys are going to be staying in. And they were like bunk beds. They were like a dormitory. And all these old guys that have been living by themselves are like, I can't get up on the top bunk. I have a bad knee, or I can't sleep with these guys. I really snore. I snore really badly. And then the other guys are like, I've never done my own laundry. I don't know how to do my laundry. I mean, it was just, and this guy was like, well, I just got through with chemotherapy. And I was like, okay. Or I have a congenital, like almost like a Lou Gehrig, not Lou Gehrig, but Parkinson's. I have like a genetical Parkinson's thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Wait, Leslie on the comments says, I would say that the qualities that you look for are different when you are young on planning on having children with the person versus being older and not planning on having children. Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So I have to show you this other clip for women over 40. So watch this.
I haven't worn earrings in such a long time.
Who cares?
And the other day, I noticed that one of my holes closed up. I'm now really scared that the same is gonna happen to my vagina.
Emotional damage.
I had to show that.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, it's a whole different ball game. I mean, it's one thing to get married young to somebody and grow old with them.
Yes.
So you're both kind of changing over time, and you're used to this person, and so it's not shocking. It just kind of happens slowly. It's another thing to dive in with someone new and they're old and they have gout, or they have, back problems or knee problems or foot problems or heart problems or lung, all the things. And you're like trying to become interested in this person, and they're not attractive the way that you were hoping to find. When you're young, everybody's pretty young and attractive, right? I mean, relatively. But when you're older, it's a whole new thing. And I just found myself being cringed out a lot. Anyway, we can talk about my experience.
Yeah. I want to start out because you don't know how much I admire you, because you start your book out and this is what you say at the very beginning of your book. At the tender age of 54, After 33 years of a difficult marriage and 7 kids, I entered the online dating scene. I had gone through divorce and then the death of my ex-spouse and both of my parents. But after some time, I get back into dating, which I had not done since I was 18. And I mean, the fact that you had been married for 33 years and like you say, it was a difficult marriage. It wasn't perfect. And there wasn't even, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there wasn't even infidelity in the marriage, was there? It was just incompatibility. And the other thing I admire about you is you didn't choose to get divorced because your kids were grown and gone. Your husband was now a multimillionaire, and you thought, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to take half of everything he has and go and live my fun high school life I never got to live because I was 18. You left under really like, I don't care. I just have to get out of this marriage. And it wasn't the easiest thing in the world for you to do. And I admire you so much for that, because there are so many women, especially when you are married young and you belong to a fundamental religion, which really teaches the importance of family and depending on what your Christianity might be, or even your traditional religion that you were born into, there might be a high regard for marriage in general, and divorce is taboo. And it's kind of taboo in the Mormon religion, but not as much as it used to be. But still, not only do I admire you for that, but you also live in an environment and in a culture that is heavily fundamentally religious. And your last name was there's a little bit of dynasty going on there. So you were almost like some of the people that are put on a pedestal for being members of the Mormon church. So you had that to say, if I get divorced, what are the good people going to think about my dad, who is an authority in this fundamental religion? I mean, there's a lot more things you had to think about, but at some point you said, I have to do what's best for me. So, I mean, that even starting to date again with that kind of background, it has to be more difficult than it is for just the average person.
It might be. I think at the time, I just had I needed to get out, and I knew I did, because my mental health was really affected by staying. And I knew that, and I had done it, like I said, 33 years. And, some people would say, why now? You've been for so long. Why not just finish it out? And I thought I really just couldn't. I thought I could live another 30 years easily, because I was 54. My mom died at 86. I could be, 80 something and still be stuck there. I just knew I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So for me, it was kind of a survival thing. I just knew I had to get out, and I just jumped in with both feet. Now, at first, it was a little bit daunting, because I didn't know much about digital dating and all of that. It was a little bit scary to bite that off, and because we didn't do that. You and I, we didn't have this at all. It was, you meet at a dance, you meet at a barbecue, you meet at school. It wasn't some online dating thing where you just have profile pictures to look at and whatever they wrote about themselves, right? So it's a scary world. And if I just dated organically, the pool here, I live in Utah, I knew they were. They're men, right? Yeah. And I just didn't want another Mormon marriage, or that's even true. Dating Mormon.
I didn't even think about that. It wasn't even like you were going into the dating pool with like, all right, I want a men between the ages of 50 and 65 or whatever. You had to say, and I live in a Mormon community where my entire neighborhood is LDS, and where do I find a non-LDS person in Utah? that's like,
Yeah.
let's go to India and go, where do I find someone that's not Hindu or that's the theocracy in that state. So that is, did you put that in your, okay, let's just start, because you start out in your book, and because I think this is really important. You start out by saying, talking about the digital age and how that's so different. And it's so funny because I was on an airplane and for some reason, the guy that was sitting in the row in front of me, I could see his phone. So he was sitting and he was on a dating app and he was just swiping. That's the first time I've ever seen it in real life. And I remember going, oh, and then here's another thing. We're standing at the movies. My husband and I are standing in line to get popcorn for a movie the other day. And in back of the popcorn stand, they're playing trailers for the movies that are coming up. And one of them is the new movie with Nicole Kidman, where she plays a very successful CEO that starts having an affair with a younger. And these two old guys are sitting behind me. And the one guy says, yeah, I guess her husband, Keith Urban, wasn't real happy about that movie. And the other guy goes, yeah, I heard that was really difficult for her to make too. And then the other guy goes, she's too old for that. And I thought, oh, honey, if Nicole Kidman looked your way, you would be like, yes, mama. I was just
you
like,
would melt like butter on sight.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. Okay, so you start out and you talk about how it's new and dating is not dating online, but then you go into setting up a freaking online profile. I mean, starting out with number one, what did you find when you got on those dating apps? You start out by talking about your profile picture. And you talk about your listing of your bio, kind of. So what was your experience with that?
Well, I have in my phone, I have a whole selection of photos of guys that I show my friends, of guys' profiles from the dating apps that I was on. And we just laugh and laugh because they're so bad. These men, and some women, I don't know, because I'm not looking at women, I'm looking at men. They don't know how to take a decent photo. And so they take all the wrong angles. Like they hold their phone down here. And so you're getting an up the nose shot and everything's all hanging and terrible shot. They do fuzzy, from a distance shots where you're like, or with a group of people and you're like, well, which one are you? I don't know which one you are in that group. There's no way of knowing. And that's their profile picture. Or they're, just horrible. They're not smiling. They have a grumpy look. They look unkempt. These guys just didn't know how to take a good picture. And also, they would take a picture, maybe one of themselves, but then all the other pictures were of, their motorcycle, their truck, their fishing gear, their dog, a mountain, and it's like, okay, but I'm not dating any of those things. I would be dating the person. So let me see you. Can I see pictures of you? Okay, you love your motorcycle, but how does that relate to me, really? I guess if I was a motorcycle queen, like you are, Renee, and I had a Harley, and maybe that would be attractive to me.
Yeah.
But what are the chances? So it's kind of like, they just don't get. So in the book, I just say, here's what you need to do for a profile picture, and I kind of explain it. And then also other photos, take pictures of you doing things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like if you like to cook, have a picture of you cooking. If you like to hike, have a picture of you hiking. But to just show cooking utensils or a mountain is not what we want. We want to see the person, right? And so anyway, it's laughable when you see some of the things. And then when they would describe themselves, you could clearly, these guys don't have a clue what to say or how to present themselves. So I kind of have a section in the book about that. Here's what you write in your profile,
Yeah.
Trying to help these guys out a little bit because they were so It was so bad. And I kept scrolling and thinking, is this what I'm dealing with? Is this is all there is?
Yeah.
This is it?
Well, I know you said,
was-
you know,
it was quite
you said
frightening.
talk about your passions and your hobbies, but skip the generic stuff and get specific, and show off your uniqueness and let your personality shine. And I would say also, that clip that I showed from The Bachelorette, I don't want to hear affirmations. I would not want to see, the most important thing to me is honesty and communication. I'm like, well, great.
Yeah, what
You
does
know,
that mean?
what does that even mean?
How does
You know,
that
that
apply?
you're
How does that
listening-
apply? Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
let's hear what you really value and why it's important to you. You know, you
Yeah.
could say, I value honesty, but everyone values honesty. So
Well, yeah.
tell me what are you saying? Are you saying that you don't want somebody to pretend that there's something they're not?
Yeah.
Or do you want them not to cheat on you? Like, what is it? What is it you want to know? And the pretending something you're not is something you really have to watch for in dating online, because there are people that do fake profiles.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful, handsome model face, and you know, and then their description will say something like, want to take a ride, or let's go to Paris, or something like that. And you're like, okay, you're not telling me anything about yourself. And all I see is this beautiful face. How do I even know that's you? And usually you can tell, because it'll just be one or two photos and the rest, and they have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So there are people that want you to click on them because they're handsome, but they're really not that person. They've taken someone else's pictures and made a profile out of it. You know, catfishing. You've heard of that.
Yes. And you talk about that. You talk about red flags. And I remember watching, I can't remember if I was watching when Cara Burrell was talking with Ryan, and he was talking about the very wealthy people that Tim Ballard was associated with. And they would show pictures of all their cars lined up in the driveway, you know, the Bentleys and the Porsches and the McLarens and all of these things. And I think the most important thing would be to maybe watch a few videos on the differences between men and women, because men and women are biologically different. Men definitely are visual, and what they think is important, women don't necessarily think. Like there was a funny episode of Seinfeld, and Jerry says to what's her name? Julia Louise Dreyfus, Elaine. He says to Elaine, he says, yeah, I was with so-and-so last night, and I walked in the room naked, and she was like really turned off. And I'm like, I don't know what the big deal is. And Elaine goes, you were naked? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, oh no, men should never be naked. And then, you know, George says, well, what do you mean? Women can be naked? And she said, yeah, women's bodies are art. They're you know, they're beautiful pieces of sculpture. Men are just like things hanging in blobs of stuff. And you know, I thought that's the difference between men and women. It's like, you think that your car and your 4 cars in your driveway, that says to me you're a pretentious jerk, and I don't want to have anything to do with you. But for men, other men would go, damn, that guy's got a McLaren and a Bentley, you know? So you kind of have to know the difference between men and women. And so that's kind of basic, but you talked about that. Those are red flags. And it's kind of like, what is it, Maya Angelou, or who is it that says, when they tell you who they are, believe them, you know? And so those are red flags. I feel on the same plane. If all you own is a minivan, I would be concerned about that too.
That's right. So there's kind of a balance, isn't there?
Yeah.
You have to watch. I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves was men who only have a couple of teeth. I didn't want to date guys with only a couple of teeth, you know, and they'd show you that. Like, it was like, oh, honey, I worry about some of these people. And I don't know if they ever get a date. Yeah. But there are all kinds, and that's the thing on when you're on a dating site, you have all kinds on there, and they're all looking for a hot girl. They
Yeah.
are not looking for, even if they're not attractive men, they still want the hot girl.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out. You kind of have to protect yourself and realize that. And this is what some of my biggest pet peeves are: women who immediately invite the man to their house, or to have them pick them up from their house. The first date, come pick me up at my house. No, no, no. You never share your address until you know the person well, because you don't know if they're a stalker or a creep or a serial killer. You have no idea. And if they have your address, you're in trouble. Yeah. Phone numbers too. Like, don't immediately give them your phone number. Chat on the app for a minute and make sure this is somebody that you want to give your phone number to. Yeah. Right? I mean, you can always block. And I have a list this long of names of people that I have blocked from dating.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because I thought they were a nice, and you go, oh no, they're not nice.
Yeah, and
they're not nice at all.
If you watch some of the YouTubes, some of the dirty John, where these people present themselves, and really smart, intelligent, successful business women get taken by these guys, and it's like, look, if he shows up at your front door in scrubs, that would be a red sign. Yeah, that's not, oh, he must be a doctor. That's like, I don't know many doctors that leave, the surgery theater in their scrubs and go, oh, you know what? I've got a date. Let me just run over to her house.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So
I watched Dirty John and I was like, how could she not see this? How could she not see this? It's so clear. It's so obvious. But when you get swept in, and especially if you're vulnerable, if you are a female who is lonely, who wants to have love in their life, who has this sort of fantasy idea about what love looks like and what it's going to be, and you're not totally realistic about it, you can get sucked in by these guys because they will love bomb you. They will send you flowers at work. They will call you, text you, tell you you're beautiful, tell you they love you, tell you they're falling for you, tell you they can't stop thinking about you. All the things that these women want to hear.
Yeah.
And so, and the next thing you know, they're asking for money.
Yes. I was going to talk about that.
Watch. If the guy asks for money, that's it. Draw the line right there. That tells you that is a red flag. And you might think, well, maybe he just, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a guy, we met at a restaurant. We ordered, ate, and then he said, oh, shoot, you know what? I forgot my wallet. You cover? And I was like, normally I would just be like, of course. Yeah, I got this one. Yeah. But the red flag, I got the alarm bells going off in my head. And I said, you didn't notice that you didn't bring your wallet? And he goes, yeah, I did. But I figured I didn't want to go, break the date over it and blah, blah, blah. So I covered it, and I'm thinking, watch this, just watch, So the next date, it was the same thing. He didn't have gas to get home. His truck was out of gas. He didn't have enough money. He said he'd just given his son a bunch of money to get him, some payment taken care of. So then I had to fill his truck with gas. And then he asked me out again, and I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, it's not that I can't help you or that I don't want to help people. It's that I feel like this is a one-sided thing, and you're looking at me as somebody to pay for things. And I'm not in that position, nor do I want to be, I just don't.
Yeah.
So it seemed like I was being rude, but I just thought, oh, this is a thing. This is a habit.
And I'm sure that there's men out there that are like, oh, but we can go on a first date and you just think I should pay for your dinner, or you just think that I should pay for the Uber or whatever. And it's like, there are roles that are kind of genetically, biologically put in. And whether we want, as feminists, whether we want to say, I'm not looking for a man that can take care of me. I can take care of myself. The reality is, there are physical differences between men and women. And men are stronger, usually bigger. Their skulls are shaped differently, as far as even getting into kinds of a war. Men are kind of built differently. And so there is kind of a cultural thing where, yes, I do kind of expect you to stay.
But
Or
I will say,
you agree, like in the beginning, we're going to go on our first date, and I want you to know this is going to be Dutch. Do you talk
yeah,
about that?
I've done that a bunch of times. I'll say, let's go Dutch, or let me get it for the first date, especially if I know I don't want to go on a second date. I'll say, let me pay for mine. Like if I know, I don't want them to be able to look back and say, oh yeah, she got a free meal out of me and dumped me. So I'll just say, I kind of know I don't want to go out again. I'll pay for mine. Or sometimes I'll get both. Lots of times I would say, you know what, you've paid the last 3 times. I want to pay for you this time. And they're always like, no, I don't allow that. I always pay. And I'm like, no, come on, let's be fair. I don't want this to be a one-sided thing. You've paid for the last 3 times we've gone out. Let me buy tonight. And generally they'll accept that. But I just didn't want people to think that I'm in it for that either. I'm not in it for free meals. That's not why I'm going out with you. It's because I want to get to know you. So, I think nowadays you can challenge that a little bit, that gender thing, if you want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to make the guy feel, emasculated or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't want to make him feel like you're taking their manliness away from them. But you can kind of feel what's going on, and if it's fair, you feel like it's fair for you to pay once in a while. I think it's nice.
So talk a little bit about, in your book, one of your chapters, your next chapter is about introducing someone to your family. And I want you to talk about, again, culturally and what your background is and what your experience is as being a former Mormon, and how that whole kind of soup plays into dating after either your husband's died and now you're a 60-year-old woman, but you're in this family male-centric environment, how that plays into dating over 50. What have you discovered?
Wow. Well, that's a big one because my husband had died, my kids, I felt, were very sensitive to another guy coming in.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of a rule for myself that I would not bring a man into their lives unless I was sure I wanted to spend an indefinite amount of time with this person. I had to be that sure. I wasn't just bringing guys over. Hey, here's my date for tonight. Here's my flavor of the month. I didn't want to put my kids through that, and I knew it would be hard on them. So I was very, very private about my dating with my kids. I just didn't want to put them through it. So I very rarely had a man come pick me up from my house until I got to know them and trusted them. And even then, oftentimes I would just go out. I would go outside and go to their car rather than have them come inside and meet my son and my daughter that were living with me at the time. I just didn't want them to have to deal with it because I knew they wouldn't like it. Right. Nobody's going to be their dad. And I didn't want to make them feel pressure to be friendly or, and I also didn't want them to get attached to anyone that I wasn't sure about. If I would be dating them next month or next week, I didn't know if I would. And so I just didn't want to have them deal with that. But I saw a lot of people that expected to be introduced to the family.
Right.
Like right away, and wanted to introduce me to theirs. And I'd be like, that's okay. Can we wait on that? I just didn't want to intrude on people's worlds, in their lives and their families, unless I knew I was going to be dating them. For a long time.
Well, and you're in a special situation because unfortunately, spouses that pass are sometimes, put on a pedestal, and any flaws that they had are just washed away and they become these celestial beings. And so you are, you had, how much time, was there any time between your initial divorce and your husband getting sick that you were dating? And so you just had the typical divorced mom dating experience.
Yeah.
And did it change?
There was,
how did it change?
And my ex was dating too. And he was much more open with it. He was inviting these women to the house with the kids all the time. I'd come over because I was close by, and I would come over to help the kids with homework or whatever. And there'd be women there. That happened. I met so many women that he was dating. He had them right in there, right in the house, which was fine. I'd come in and say, "Oh, hi," and shake their hand and introduce myself. And so I met lots of girls that he was going out with. But yeah, I didn't do that so much. Like, I don't think my kids met anyone that I was dating for the first 2 or 3 years that I was single. I just didn't do it. I didn't want them to have to, because I felt bad for them with these new women coming in. They'd be like, who is this? Who is this person? She's in here in my house. It just felt, I just didn't want to do that.
How many kids did you have at home when you first got divorced out of the 7?
We had 5 living at home out of the 7.
How old was, what was the age range?
Let's see. It's hard to remember. This was in 2014. So it's been 10 years. So the oldest boy at home was 25.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's 35 now. Yeah, so there was 25 on down of my kids. The youngest was, when we got a divorce, was 11.
Wow.
And they stayed. I'm the one that moved out. My husband stayed in the big house with the kids. I moved out literally down the street next door to my parents because I didn't want to be far away. I wanted to be close by. But if I would have wanted the house, it would have been a fight with legal. We would have brought attorneys in. So I was the one that said, fine, I'm just going to move out. But I was there all the time. I was there with the kids, helping with homework. I was doing laundry. I was cleaning. I was cooking. And then I'd go home to my place and go to bed at night. And that was for about 6 months. And then I moved further away. But he died 4 years after our divorce. Okay. But he didn't get sick. We didn't know he died of colon cancer. We didn't know he was ill until at least 2 years after we were divorced.
Wow.
At least, because he died 18 months after he was diagnosed.
Wow.
So we had
amazing. The fact that he was bringing women into the home in front of the children, did that create a mom against dad issue? Were there people that were taking dad's side? No, that's good.
No, because I didn't make a fuss about it.
Oh.
I just didn't. I just introduced myself, was friendly to them. These women came to his funeral. These women were...
This should be a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, there were several of them that helped in the kitchen with the food at the funeral. Like, these are women that he dated. They were all LDS. He only dated LDS women. He was planning on getting sealed to someone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that never happened. But because he got sick and they kind of scattered. They still were friends with him, but they didn't want to date him anymore, which really was interesting. Of course, they don't want to date a guy who's dying.
Yeah.
There are things that you kind of have to deal with. I didn't make a fuss about him with the women. I wasn't jealous. I didn't feel any of that. So I didn't make the kids feel awkward about it or like, can you believe? I just never we didn't play that role with each other.
Right.
I didn't complain about him to the kids. I don't know. I don't think he complained about me to the kids.
Interesting.
We had taken a class, divorce class. And it was about parenting after a divorce with kids. And that was a turning point in our situation, because he initially had really angry feelings at me because I was the one that wanted the divorce, and he was going to make me pay, and he was going to make the kids make me pay, you know, through them, punish me through the kids. And he changed his whole demeanor after we went to that class, because he realized that what he would be doing would be harming them, not me.
That's really
Once
great.
we figured that out, we just both decided, hey, let's just make this as easy as we can on our kids.
Right.
So no fighting, no taking sides, no trash talking on each other. So really, it was the easiest. Like, my kids will tell you right now, if you interviewed them, they would tell you that it didn't even really feel like a divorce. It just felt like mom and dad, we remained friends. We still got together every Sunday and had dinner together with the family every Sunday, and invited my parents over. And we just continued to parent, even though we weren't married.
Right. That's amazing. I think the interesting thing is when you talked about, I'm older than you were at the time, but I think even as a 50-year-old woman or a mid-50, I mean, because by the time I was in my 50s, I had grandchildren, right? So I cannot imagine going over to a man's house that has 5 children there and going, yes, sign me up for this. This is the guy I want to marry. Give me 5 more children to be in charge of and to take care of. And yet he had, like you said, he kind of had a little bit of a stable. He had Mormon women that were like, yes, absolutely, 5 kids. That's fabulous. Together we'll have 14 kids. You know, I mean,
I don't know.
You were dating men that had 5 kids, right?
No, I date Mormon men as a rule.
There you go. Yeah.
I did date a couple randomly that, you know, I immediately was like, oh, this is why I don't want to date Mormon men. As soon as I started dating them, it was like, oh, I get it. I forgot momentarily, because they'd start asking me questions like, when was the last time you were at the temple? What's your call, your ward? What are your, you know, goals? And would you ever consider canceling your sealing to your ex, so that, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'd be like, hold on, I don't want to deal with any of this. This is why I want to steer clear of these men, because there's a patriarchal thing going on there culturally. You are property. You are not an equal. You are somehow subservient, or you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to look to them. And I just didn't want any of that. And I was still an active member at the time, and I knew I didn't want to do another Mormon marriage. No, thank you. So, and I still
think what's interesting is how you've been approached. Because, like I said, you live in a predominantly Mormon community, and how you've been approached by men who have recently become widowed, and they're older, like older than me, and 20 years older than you, you know, and they're like, hey, you're single, I'm single, we should hook up. And you're like, no. And tell the story of that guy. Wasn't he like, was he in his 80s? The neighbor guy that was like, hey, we should start dating. I mean, you're 60, he's 80. And he's like, I don't see the problem. Is you're a Mormon, I'm a Mormon, I'm a widow, you're a widow.
Yeah. What's
like
the deal? And I'd be like, ooh, no, thank you. Yeah, there was one. Actually, there were a couple. There were 3. There were men that were older, quite a bit older, that had a lot of money. Okay, a lot of money, and they figured that was an instant in, right? That what woman wouldn't want them for that? I mean, they're loaded, right? Who wouldn't? And I didn't want anything to do with them. And it was, number 1, they were Mormon. Number 2, they were way too old for me. I wasn't interested in them. Like, I wasn't attracted to them. And that's kind of a thing that I kind of want. I want to be attracted to the person. I don't want to just date some old guy that I'm then going to have to take care of because they're on their way out. You know, I just take care of my father who died. I took care of my ex-husband who died. I took care of my mother who died. And I didn't want to do it again with a new husband, even for any amount of money. Money was not an issue for me. I mean, it is, but it's not determining factor.
Yeah.
I'm not wealthy, but I don't care. Like, I don't want to be. So I turned these guys down, and they were flabbergasted and angry at me.
Interesting.
And I just said, you know what? First of all, once you feel that I'm not interested in the church anymore, you're not going to want to date me. You think you can change my mind. One of them said, what if we just got married in the temple, and then you can go back to whatever you want to do, live your life however you want to live it. You don't have to go to church anymore, but at least we'll be sealed. And I was like, I'm already sealed to a guy, and I have 7 kids with him. I can't be sealed to you unless I break that. And my kids didn't appreciate. No. And they just had this agenda, and it was like, you're trying to make me into one of those Mormon Stepford wives that I just abhor. I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Well,
and
you have some really interesting tips in here about, and this is, I think, a problem that Christian women in general maybe have a little bit. They're very vulnerable to honesty, and so they'll divulge too much information. And I am getting that. You know what? Mute your mic for a second.
Okay.
Okay, I think that might be your microphone. So you list tips in your book about trusting your instincts and how important that is to listen to your gut and listen to your gut over whatever someone's telling you, like you're saying, and then also avoid disclosing too much sensitive information. And I think members of the church have a tendency to do that. Oh, they're so trusting. They'll say, like, I remember going over to my mom's house, and she had a electrician or a plumber doing some work on her house. And she said, oh, Renee, this is so-and-so. He's a member of the church. He works in the Portland Temple and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I don't need that much information. And please don't tell him anymore. Oh, yeah, she lives here and she lives there. And, just don't divulge that. And I have to always warn my husband as well, because he's just the friendliest guy in the world. And he's so trusting. And when we were doing our renovation, I mentioned this in another podcast, we were doing our renovations, and we had, drywall and plumbers and electricians coming in all the time. And they would come into our condo, and he would say, this is my wife, Renee. I'm like, well, you just gave him my name. They know where we live. They have our email and our phone numbers. You cannot do that in 2025. There's just too much information. And then you said, verify their identity and do a background check if possible. Talk about that. Have you ever done a background check?
Yeah, I have. Once you know their whole name, you can Google search them and just see what there is to see on the internet. It may not tell you everything. It certainly won't tell you everything, but it will give you some information that they may not want to divulge. For instance, are they on a pedophile list, or yes, you don't know who these people are, especially if they're just on a website. They're not someone that you know in your neighborhood or church or whatever, and you're not running into them regularly. They're random people. You don't know anything about them. And it's very, very dangerous for women, especially because we are more vulnerable. We are smaller. I had a guy trap me in his apartment, and I couldn't get out. I was so scary. He took my phone from me, and he had me in his room, had me pinned to the bed on all fours. He was holding me down, and I had to come up with it on the fly. I had to come up with an excuse. And I said, you know what? I'm super interested in you, but I hate to tell you this, but I'm on my period. Can I just go use your bathroom really quick, and I'll take care of things, and then we can. And he was like, kind of stopped for a minute, and he goes, are you really? And I said, I really am. And he goes, okay, well, what do you need? Like, I can run and get you some stuff or whatever. And I said, well, can I please have my phone? Can I just have it for a minute? I said, I just need to ask my daughter if she can help, like, bring me some stuff, because she lives really close and she could just bring me stuff over. And he goes, no, one's coming over here. No one's coming over here. And I was like, and luckily this is what I did. And this is what I would recommend every woman to do before you go on a date. Especially, I was new at this. I was very new, and I didn't know this guy, and he had invited me to his apartment, which I should never have done. So a lot of this is stuff I've learned. I told my daughter that if by 11 o'clock I did not text her, that she should call me on my phone. Call me. And so anyway, she called. And he's like, who is this? And I said, I think it's my daughter. So he handed me the phone. And I took it and I said, yep, nope, yep. And she wasn't saying anything. So she knew something was wrong. She knew that I couldn't speak. So she knew she needed to do something. So she literally called the cops and got my location. And they showed up at the front door. That is the only way I got out of there.
Oh my.
It was by having the cops show up at the door, knock at the door, and then he let me go. And then proceeded to text me for the rest of the night, just berating me, 4-letter words, calling me every name in the book, and then I blocked him. Wow. But it was like, I don't know what would have happened to me if I hadn't have told my daughter to call me at a certain time. I don't know what would have happened, because that's the only way I got out of there. So because she got my location and everything, and that's how it ended. But I'm telling you, it is so dangerous out there. Yeah. And that guy's still on that website.
No.
Yeah, he's still on.
The police didn't arrest him for any kind of anything?
I guess not. I mean, I told him that I told the police that he was holding me against my will, and he was like, that's not true. She wanted it. She told me she wanted it. Remember, because I had tried to play along. Yeah. And anyway, so he's still on there. But wow. I just, I got out with my life intact. I don't know if he's a rapist or what he is. I just knew that I was scared out of my wits. So that's why I say, don't go to anyone's residence. Yeah. Don't invite them to your residence until you really know the person and you've vetted them. Then it's safe to proceed. But that was, I just I didn't even tell my family about that, because I thought, if that gets out, they won't let me date anymore. They're going to put me in a basement and tie me up.
Well, you know what? And not only that, but it's really hard. I mean, you have a part in your book where you talk about different personality traits, and it seems weird that you have to go and get a doctorate degree in, psychological disorders in order to date. But nowadays, there's enough YouTubes out there that you could spend an afternoon just going through some, because you list some of the traits for narcissism: an exaggerated sense of self-importance, the belief they are special or unique, or a lack of empathy. I mean, you go through and you list, and then you also list some personality traits for psychopathy, which I think is crazy, but it's like behavior that conflicts with social norms. If they're just a little off, maybe they do taxidermy. That's a good thing, I guess, but maybe not in their bedroom. So that might be a personality thing, or a disregard for, or a violation of others' rights, or a tendency to lie often. I don't know who that reminds me of, but, and then you talk about sociopathic personality traits too, hot-headed or impulsive behavior, reoccurring problems with the law. If they start talking to you about how many times they were arrested, that might be a warning sign, and then you talk, but the great thing is towards the end, you talk about positive thinking and confidence. So it's not all a Debbie Downer, right? It's, avoiding being, talk about this a little bit, the scarcity and the abundance conflict
mindset.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, because I think that all of us have one or the other. Maybe we waffle back and forth a little bit, but where you kind of live in your mindset affects everything you do. And that scarcity mindset of there's probably not even one out there, nobody's going to want to date me, I'm not perfect, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm old, I blah, 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 you fill in the blank, I don't have any money, whatever. People kind of have a tendency to live in that world of I'm not enough and no one's going to want me. And why should I even put myself out there? There's all kinds of crazy people out there. It's dangerous. And you can live in that world and never go outside and never leave your home, and just sort of hole up. And that's no way to live. There's no point in living if that's how you're going to live, right?
Mm, yeah.
So the opposite of that is an abundance mindset where you realize there's plenty of fish in the sea. I have great abilities, talents, whatever to offer. I'm a loving, caring, honest, kind person who deserves to be loved. And having that mindset of there are lots of people out there and I can go find one. I can find one that works for me. And I have just as much right to that as the next person. And kind of having that positive outlook because, it's how you think in your heart. That's who you are. And so it really does affect, when you're dating, you can tell if somebody is really down on themselves and doesn't think that they're worth anything. You're like, oh,
yeah, that
how
gets
long
old.
is it gonna take? Are we done yet? So yeah, I did talk a little bit about that and just having a positive outlook. And sometimes you have to work on that. If it's not natural for you, you have to work on your self-esteem.
Well, and I think that's true. And I want to talk a little bit because I want to show, let me show you the slides here. So this is your next book that you have coming out, Anxious Attachment Recovery, right? Is this your book? Did I get the right one?
Yes, that's my audio book. And it's out right now on Audible.
Okay. And
it's also on paperback and hardback. Pardon me?
Did you write this with someone else? Did you have a co-writer with this? Okay.
No.
Maybe it was just, was there a different narrator?
Yes, there's a narrator for the audiobook. It's not me. I didn't narrate it. I don't like my voice enough to do that. I got a really beautiful sounding voice doing it. So you can go on Audible and get that one. Now, it's also out on paperback and hardback and ebook. So, and those are on Amazon, but you have to type in Jasmine Cody along with it because that's my pen name. Anxious Attachment Recovery by Jasmine Cody. That's my pen name. I chose to use a pen name for many reasons. Right. And I know I'm outing myself here, but part of it is because I am a single woman and I'm trying to protect my identity. So you have to be careful out there. I don't have anyone protecting me.
Yeah.
So I have to protect myself.
That seems crazy. But if you remember, and this is, let me see if we can move this over a little bit. There we go. This is the profile that Amazon has on your book that we're talking about, your online dating advice book. It says, are you over 50? Yeah. Are you over 50? Do you need vitamin? Are you over 50 and feeling lost in the world of online dating? Have you tried it before and not had much luck? This book is here to guide you and help you find success in the online dating world. The book's benefits are learn how to create an irresistible profile that will attract the right person, the right partner for you, master the art of texting to increase your chances of success. That's interesting. Navigate the tricky waters of the first date and avoid common mistakes, gain confidence in building intimacy with someone new, ensure your safety and security while dating, which we've talked about. And then it lists even more about that. So I thought that was a really good description of the book. And this is the picture. This is what it looks like. And again, if you go to Amazon, you have to put in Jasmine Cody to find the book, or the name, or the online dating advice for midlife. You probably could find it that way as well. But just if you put in Jasmine Cody, you can find that. And then do you have another book that's coming out besides The Anxious Recovery? Oh, you're muted. Oh, can't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
didn't even realize. Along with the Anxious Attachment Recovery book is the companion to that is Avoidant Attachment Recovery. So I don't know if you're familiar with attachment styles, and I do touch on it in this little book. Attachment styles are kind of something to watch for when you're dating, because there are different types of attachment that people have. And one of them is anxious and one of them is avoidant. And you'll notice the anxious person is very needy, clingy, has to get immediate gratification when it comes to texting. Like if you don't text right back, they're offended, they're hurt, they're scared that you're going to ghost them. They're quite needy, and they need lots of positive affirmation and positive feedback. They have to know that you really care about them, and you have to tell them a lot. That's the anxious one. And then there's the avoidant attachment, which is the type of person that as soon as you start getting close, they run. They cut and run. They can't handle intimacy, don't want intimacy. It scares them. The fearful avoidant want it, but they're afraid of it. The dismissive avoidant doesn't want it at all. And they are typically the type that just wants to have sex and that's it. There's no dating really with them. They just want to hook up. If you start to get too close, they will push away. So, and in those books, as I talk about those attachment styles and talk about how you can actually recover from your attachment style, which is caused by your childhood and the way you were raised by your primary caregiver. We aren't born into the world this way. We are created by our primary caretakers when we're young. How we attach is learned. So you can overcome it if it's ruining your life because you're so clingy that everyone's like, leave me alone, quit texting all day long, stop blowing up my phone. If you're ruining your relationships that way, or if you're ruining because you run away from intimacy and you don't know how to stop doing that, there are ways to overcome it. And so that's what the books are about. And then I'm coming along soon with one about spiritual abuse, which I want to get into at some point, which is very close to home. And so that's coming down the pike too.
You know, it's interesting you would say that because I just listened to something and they were talking about, do you remember the book, The 5 Love Languages?
Yes.
And how popular that was. And this one lady was saying that it even got popular in her church. And they were teaching principles from this 5 love languages at church. Wow. Come to find out, the guy that wrote that is a pastor. And he wrote it based on his experience of counseling Christian couples. And none of the things that he says in the book are backed by any kind of therapy or, psychology or anything that's verifiable or data driven. And they found through some of his other latest things, he's basically set everything up as a patriarchal system for how these love languages are supposed to be set out and the roles that they play and this kind of thing. And it was very interesting because you talk about the spirituality and, and how you were raised and how that would go. Like I could see I have a person in our congregation that her husband died. He was very controlling. He would not allow her to go to church and he died. And so for the first time in her life, she's able to go to church. Very attractive woman. And she was so happy. And I went and sat with her one time with another single friend. I don't know where my husband was at the time, but the three of us sat together and I met her and I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, the next thing I know, after I stopped going to church, I found out that there was an older man in his 80s that his husband had died. And within months, she had married him because she didn't know how to be alone. And she also thought the idea of marrying a active, strong member of the church was something that she finally could do. I mean, there was just a lot of other reasons behind it. But, when you talk about the things that you learn just by your upbringing and the caregivers that nurtured you, it's really, I'm glad you put that in a book because that needs to be investigated, especially if you're starting a new relationship and you need to find out where you're at.
Yes, very, very important. Attachment style has been out there for a while. This was in the 70s, I believe. The initial, there were two different things that kind of came together and figured out this whole attachment theory. And they came up with the different attachment styles by doing lots of, I guess they were using monkeys at first, and how if you take the mother away from the monkey, what happens to the monkey, right? When they're tiny. You might have seen a movie about this when you were at school or something.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. And if you have had a mother or your primary caretaker has been inconsistent in taking care of your needs, you will develop either an anxious attachment style or a avoidant attachment style. It goes one way or the other. You either become super clingy or you decide, I don't need you. I don't need anyone. I'm fine by myself. Don't bother me. It's one or the other. And then the secure people, there's 50% of the population is secure. That's what you want to be. But the other 50 is split between those other two. And the secure people don't, they're much more calm about relationships. They don't panic over if someone doesn't text them right back. They don't assume the worst, and they like intimate. They want to be intimate, but they're not like, I have to have a partner. I can't live, and that's what you're talking about with that woman. And I think a lot of men have a tendency to want to get remarried quickly for a number of reasons. And some women are the same way. They want to get remarried because they want someone to take care of them. They're afraid of being on their own. They don't know how to be on their own.
Yeah. That's true. And I heard another thing too. There's a new phrase out there called the hospice wife. And they said, if you're dating someone that's in his 50s, he's done his thing, he's had the girlfriends, he's lived the life, and now he's decided, my health's getting a little, I might need to finally settle down and find someone that can take care of me in my old age. And they're calling it the hospice wife. And I thought, I can see where that would become a problem. That would be an issue. So
yes. And one of my favorite older wealthy men that tried to get me to date him married a woman who was 55 and he's in his early 80s. She's going to be his hospice wife. I can just see it. She has a ton of money, so maybe she'll be able to afford care for him. But
there is an interesting, when you're not afraid to be by yourself and you're not afraid to be independent. And, they say people that date, like you say, quickly after a death or older, they'll say, are you dating for nurse or purse? You need someone to take care of you or pay for you, or is it true attraction and compatibility? But
anyway, that's interesting.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to put a link to the book in the description. And
let me say, this is a super short book. It is 24 pages. It is not a long read, but it's packed with stuff for anybody who's dating in the digital age and you're older. You're not in your 20s or 30s or even 40s. So super easy read, but it's I think there's a lot of good information in there. So
and you might have to start out at the Apple Store just to learn how to download an app and you use it for that's where you're at,
right.
And you're in your 60s and you don't know how this app thing works, because this is one of the things you don't want to turn over to your 8-year-old granddaughter, right? Could you help grandma figure out how to use the dating app, Molly?
Probably not.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today. Fabulous first day of the new year. This is great.
Woo. Let's go. All right. Thanks, Renee.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh. I can't think of a better way to start out the new year. And Lila has just, I'm so glad she was vulnerable enough to share that story, because it lets you know that as women, you can be up to date. You can do all the things that you think you should be doing and still get in a precarious position. And you just have to double think everything. And that's sad in this day and age, but it's true. And you can't deny it. So I think just picking up, like she said, this is an easy read, but it will at least get you started and start to maybe, you're going to have to start thinking differently than you did in 1970. Okay. It's a different world out there, and you have to start thinking differently. Thank you so much for joining me. And I want to remind you, the most important thing that I need from you is for you to push subscribe, like, and share, and that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't take, you don't have to do a background check. You can introduce me to your friends. All of the things that Lila says not to do, you can do that with my podcast. Okay. Just push subscribe. That's all I need. I will never ask you. There'll never be a money or a paywall around this podcast. I do this because I just love learning. And the most important thing with learning is once you learn, the next step is to teach and share. And that's what I love about doing this podcast. So next week, I have my favorite naturopath that's going to be on. We're going to be talking about hormone replacement for women and just nutrition and other things that we as women need to start paying attention to. And it's a weird world out there, ladies. It's a different world. And we live in a world of plastics. We live in a world of ingredients in our food that are destroying our bodies. And when we talk about, January, we're going to get healthy, maybe we're going to lose weight, and maybe you set that as a goal for 2024 and you didn't have the success that you thought you would have. Maybe there are some underlying reasons for this, and it's not just you didn't have enough self-discipline. Maybe it's your hormones. Maybe it's the plastic that you're microwaving your food in, or cooking your food in nonstick pans that are, interrupting your hormones and the things that help you to get healthy. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. And I especially, as part of the becoming visible, is if your love language, we talked about love language, but if your love language was cooking and baking for your family, but that's something that you don't want to do anymore because you're struggling with your own health and you want to really start eating differently than your family does, it's okay to step back and say, who's going to be the next chef? Because I'm out of here. And that's one of the things I want you to say no to is there will be no more mint brownies in our home because mama is going to be eating healthy. And if they are in, everybody that I know that is really conscious about their health, they have admitted very openly that they cannot have junk food in the house. If it's there, you will eat it. And so the idea that you're making baked goods for your kids or for your husband, or you love to make pies and take to your neighbors, but you're also eating 3 of them, then maybe that's something you have to say no to this year. Those are all the things that we're going to be talking about. So please subscribe. Thanks so much for joining me. And I will see you next week on She Became Visible. Bye-bye.